Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. This is the BAT 100 from FullSpeedRC. Featuring FullSpeed branded 705 15,000 kV brushless motors, the Teeny 1S flight controller with an OSD, a 6-amp 4-in-1 ESC, 600 TV line camera with a 48-channel 25 milliwatt VTX. This combination is also known as the VM2751. Two bladed 56mm props. On top we have a buzzer and an LED. Has the fully encompassed PH02 connector for your battery. You need to include your own receiver. Comes with a 500 milliamp 1S battery, 2 sets of rubber bands and Velcro for your battery, and an extra set of props. It weighs 32 grams. The battery weighs 12.1 grams. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting 102 millimeters. Running beta flight 3.1.7. So this is another good product from FullSpeedRC. I'm actually quite happy that they're sending these things out and servicing us all well with ready to flies. These have unique motors, the 705s. I don't know if we've seen those available. I presume Racer Star is making these and FullSpeed has rebranded them, but I don't recall seeing them on the Banggood website, so maybe I just missed those. But they didn't try to squeeze on tri-blades. I think this Stretch X here flies very well with the two-bladed props, and it's a nice little cruiser, which you can still do acrobatics with. You can still do flips and rolls and loops. The punch-outs are going to be fairly mild because we just don't have a huge, powerful system here. But it's going to be a nice progression, I think, from those that might be interested in brushless and might be coming from brush, just as I did when I first started. If you saw the last video, when I first started, I was doing brushed FPV. It was a whole lot more complicated then than it is now, but here we go. And, something else that I think may seem kind of ugly, but they added it because it is an important feature in my opinion, and that's the buzzer. They had to put it on top because there just really isn't any space inside, and it does have this LED on here, which is quite bright. You might need that, you might not, but they've stuck it here on the top, and they've used a full-size buzzer, and it is quite nice and loud because if you are flying this outside and you have a crash, the buzzer's going to come in handy to find this. Also, the receiver I used is one of the Spectrum, the DSMX Pros. I picked those up from my RC Mart. And it's really, really tiny in there. You can see I've got a little bit of sticky tape on top, and then I routed my antenna up here because there really isn't anywhere else in the body to route the antenna, and I didn't want it necessarily sticking out the back. I was worried about it getting into the props if it stuck out the back because it is somewhat flexible. The camera does pretty well for a CMOS camera. We've seen this model featured on a number of the FullSpeed products. You also have the OSD, so it can give you some information about your battery, your flight mode, your flight time, anything you want. If you don't want OSD, you just go through Betaflight and you uncheck those things, and then your image is unblemished, so to speak. They've used a nice camera mount here, which I'm not certain, but I don't think that's 3D printed. So we've got some camera angle by default. Of course, if that's too much, if you want less, just take a little bit of foam tape and put it behind there. They've also, like on the last FullSpeed product that I have, they took a little bit of foam tape, because we have these here. I can show it better from this side. We have these switches, and oftentimes if this mount comes up, this switch will cause the camera nose not to necessarily point straight, but it might be cocked over because of that switch. But they've taken the time to put some foam, and they also made their mount a little bit lower so that the camera sits flat and it points straight. Well, maybe not straight. It seems straight when I was flying it. Maybe I fussed with it. There we go. But it points straight ahead, and we don't have to worry about that too much. As far as the robustness of this, I've flown this. I only have the one battery, so I think that, typically on a vehicle, I fly probably... Oftentimes I fly 30 or more times before I'm actually satisfied with A, my flight video, and B, that I've got an experience that I can rely on so that you're not misled. If I fly this once and the flight goes great and I just say, okay, I'm done with that review, and I put it in a box, I don't know if these parts hold up, if these parts are durable. I don't know if the frame is quality or not. I don't know if the motors have limited life if I only do one flight. So I'm hopeful that that adds some value for you, because when I get a vehicle in for review, whether I've built it myself or whether it's come as a review sample or I bought it, I put a number of different batteries through it, and I get a fairly substantial bit of flight time. I think that's really the only way of doing a responsible review, but that's just my personal opinion. And at this point, let me ask you, does that add any value to you? Does it matter if I show you one flight or if I show you two flights, or if it comes out in the review video I've only got a couple flights? Does the fact that I fly a bunch of times with each vehicle add value to you? So leave a comment below and let me know. That's just feedback. I'm not trying to throw any daggers at anyone who might do one flight reviews. That's not my place in validating someone else's review. This is just about me, what I do, because I want to produce videos that are good, fun, and also informative, and can help you make a decision about a product. But overall, I think this is a good flyer. I think it's a nice progression, as I said, from brushed. Even if you're doing brushless already, you might like this one because it's very relaxing to fly. It's very easy to fly. They've tuned it. The rates on it are a little bit peculiar for me. They all come out to 800 degrees as far as the rates go, how quickly it will respond, and I left those intact. The tune on it I thought was very reasonable. I didn't see any need to really change things. And I'm really happy that we have a company now. I hope they produce more vehicles that is taking the time to actually tune vehicles. So they probably have a pilot on staff, someone who can fly a little bit. Oftentimes when we see products in their, maybe their initial stage, they haven't quite come to market. The flight videos are really kind of weird. They almost kind of hover around inside an office, and it doesn't look as though whoever's flying it really has much experience. And therefore, they just say, oh, yeah, it flies, and then they put it in the box and they ship it to us. And that oftentimes comes out when we get them and we put a bunch of battery packs through them. So I applaud them for the fact that they're checking a lot of boxes in their models. They're coming out with different models of different shapes and sizes for different areas of the market. They're including OSD. They're including a buzzer. Some people might not like the fact that they're not including receivers. I can understand that too a bit, because if they include a receiver, then they're going to get support questions as to how to bind those. But if you put your own receiver in, then the binding questions are really on us as pilots of knowing how to include the receivers. And that might not be a big deal for many, but sometimes that's one of the biggest hurdles, is getting the receiver bound, because it can be a little bit tricky depending upon the radio that you're using. I get lots of questions about binding the receiver. I like the fact that they put little pieces of heat shrink here to keep the wires down, and I appreciate that, because if you do get hung up in a tree, the last thing you need is a tree branch, a little tiny twig or something to go sliding between here, which if we don't have that, our chances of that are much higher. You know, this end of our quads kind of act like a grappling hook anyways, so if we get hung up in a tree, we can't really cover up this end to deal with, but these wires being down will definitely decrease the chance we get one that's really difficult to get out of a tree. So I'm pretty happy with this product. I think it's a good product. I've said that a few times in this review. I think if you're interested in something like this, something that flies as you see in the video that I've provided, you might want to stop by and pick one up. You can pick these up from, my link will be to GearBest, because that was the vendor that sent it to me. This time of year, we have a lot of our Far East vendors that are coming through with promos and different things of that nature. I think the 11th anniversary for Banggood is coming up, and I think the 4th anniversary for GearBest is coming up, and there's a number of others. I get emails all the time. Sometimes I read them, sometimes I don't. But you might look for promo codes, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of websites out there that feature the promo codes that come from different vendors, and you might be able to plug those in and save a few dollars. And I'm always looking to save dollars. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.